Deep inside a large green forest lived a small mouse named Rico. He was tiny, fast, and full of dreams. Every day he watched the squirrels collecting nuts and the rabbits preparing their homes. Rico wanted to become the richest and smartest mouse in the entire forest. One morning he climbed onto a tree stump and shouted, "One day I will build the biggest food house in the forest." The birds looked at him. The rabbits smiled. Even the deer stopped walking to hear him. Rico loved the attention. Every day he announced a new plan. "I will collect more grain than anyone. I will build 3 storage rooms. I will never worry about winter." The animals praised him. "You are very clever. You will become successful. You have amazing ideas." Rico felt proud. He spent hours telling everyone about his future. But after talking, he often became tired and decided to rest. Near the river lived an old mouse named Marcus. He was quiet and wise. One evening he asked Rico, "How much food have you collected?" "Not much," Rico replied. "How many storage rooms have you built?" "None yet." Marcus smiled. "Then why are you celebrating a future that has not arrived?" Rico laughed. "I am just sharing my dreams." The old mouse looked toward the sunset. Dreams are important, but too many words can steal the energy needed for action. Rico ignored the advice. The next day he told even more animals about his plans. Weeks passed. Summer slowly disappeared. But Rico still had very little food stored. One evening he opened his small storage hole. It was almost empty. For the first time, fear entered his heart. Winter was getting closer. And Rico suddenly realized that talking about success had not brought him any closer to it. At that moment, he heard a voice behind him. It was old Marcus. "Now," he said softly, "your real journey begins." The next morning, Rico woke up before sunrise. The cold wind reminded him that winter was coming closer every day. He looked at his nearly empty storage hole and remembered Marcus's words. "Your real journey begins." For the first time, Rico decided not to announce any plans. When the rabbits asked, "What are you going to do this winter?" Rico simply smiled. "I'm working." The animals were surprised. They were used to hearing his big dreams every day. But now he remained quiet. Each morning, Rico searched for grains near the farms. He gathered seeds under the trees. He carried nuts from distant hills. The work was difficult because his small body became tired quickly. Sometimes he wanted to stop. Sometimes he wanted to return to his old habit of talking. But he remembered his empty storage and kept moving. One afternoon, a clever crow named Victor noticed Rico carrying food. "Where did you find those seeds?" asked the crow. Rico smiled. "Just somewhere in the forest." Victor became curious. In the past, Rico always shared every detail. Now he shared nothing. Days passed. Rico continued working silently. Something strange happened. Without spending hours talking, he had more energy. Without seeking praise, he stayed focused. Without trying to impress others, he became stronger. Slowly, his storage hole began filling up. A few bags of seeds. Several nuts. Dry fruits. Pieces of grain. For the first time in his life, Rico felt proud because of his actions, not because of other people's words. One evening Marcus visited him. The old mouse looked inside the storage and smiled. "You have changed." Rico nodded. "I finally understand." "What did you learn?" Rico looked at the food he had collected. "When I talked about success, I felt successful for a few minutes. And now? Now I work quietly, and every day I become a little better." Marcus sat beside him. Most people love applause before achievement. But real success grows in silence. Rico looked toward the dark sky. Winter clouds were arriving. His storage was growing. But he still needed much more food. And soon, the biggest test of his life would begin. Winter finally arrived. Cold winds swept through the forest. Snow covered the ground, and food became harder to find every day. Many animals who had spent the summer playing or talking now began to worry. Rico looked outside his small home. For the first time, his storage was not empty. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to survive for several weeks. The rabbit family nearby had very little food left. The birds struggled to find seeds beneath the snow. Even some squirrels had not collected enough nuts. One morning, Victor the crow visited Rico. He looked surprised. "How did you collect so much?" he asked. Rico smiled. "I stopped talking and started working." Victor remained silent. He remembered how Rico used to tell everyone about his plans. Now the small mouse had become one of the most prepared animals in the forest. Days passed. Heavy snow continued falling. The river froze. Food became extremely difficult to find. One evening, Rico heard a knock on his door. It was a young rabbit named Lily. Her family had run out of food. Rico looked at his storage for a moment. He knew he had worked very hard for it. But he also remembered the difficult days when he had nothing. Without hesitation, he shared some seeds and grain with Lily's family. Soon other animals heard about Rico's kindness. The mouse who once wanted attention was now helping others quietly. One night, Marcus the old mouse gathered several young animals inside his home. He pointed toward Rico. "This little mouse teaches us an important lesson." The animals listened carefully. Marcus continued, "Dreams are good. Plans are good. But action is what changes lives." Rico lowered his head humbly. He no longer wanted praise. He only wanted to keep improving. As winter continued, many animals began following his example. The squirrels worked harder. The rabbits prepared earlier. The birds became more disciplined. Slowly, the entire forest started changing. One snowy evening, Victor asked Rico, "What made you change so much?" Rico looked outside at the falling snow. He smiled and answered, "I realized that people should see your success through your work, not your words." Victor had no answer. And as the long winter slowly began to end, Rico discovered something even more valuable than food. He had earned respect. But spring was coming, and with it, one final lesson awaited him. Winter slowly came to an end. The snow began to melt, and warm sunlight returned to the forest. Small flowers appeared between the grass, and birds once again filled the air with songs. Rico stepped outside his home and looked around. Everything felt different. The mouse who once spent his days talking about success had become someone who quietly worked for it. His storage had helped him survive the winter. His kindness had helped other animals. And his actions had earned everyone's respect. One morning, many young animals gathered near the old oak tree. They wanted to hear Rico's story. A little squirrel asked, "How did you become successful?" Rico smiled. "I stopped trying to look successful." The animals looked confused. He continued, "Before, I wanted everyone to believe in my dreams. I loved hearing people praise me. But praise never filled my storage. Words never brought food. Only work did." Marcus, the old mouse, sat nearby listening proudly. Another young rabbit asked, "Should we never tell anyone our dreams?" Rico shook his head. "No. Share your dreams with people who truly help you. But don't spend all your energy talking about them. Protect your dreams and work on them quietly." The animals listened carefully. Over the next few weeks, the forest began to change. The rabbits started preparing earlier. The squirrels worked harder. The birds practiced every day. Instead of competing for attention, they focused on improving themselves. Even Victor the crow changed. He stopped looking for easy opportunities and started working honestly. One evening, Rico and Marcus sat beside the river watching the sunset. Marcus smiled. You have learned the most important lesson. Rico asked, "What lesson is that?" The old mouse looked toward the golden sky. Results speak louder than promises. Rico nodded. He finally understood. Success does not grow from talking. Success grows from patience, from discipline, from hard work, and from continuing to move forward even when nobody is watching. As spring covered the forest with new life, Rico looked around with gratitude. He was no longer the mouse who wanted everyone's attention. He had become the mouse whose actions inspired everyone. And from that day onward, whenever young animals asked him the secret of success, he always gave the same answer. Work quietly, stay patient, and let your results tell your story. The end. Moral of the story. Dreams are important, but actions make them real. Talk less, work more, and let your success speak for itself.